And God stepped out on space, and he looked around and he said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. And as far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything, blacker than 100 midnights down in a cypress swamp. But then God smiled, and the light broke. The darkness rolled up on one side, and the light stood shining on the other. And God said, that's good. Then God reached out and he took the light in his hands. And God rolled the light around in his hands until he had made the sun. And he set that sun a-blazing in the heavens. And the light that was left from making the sun, God gathered into a shining ball and flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon and stars. Then down between the darkness and the light, he hurled the world. And God said, that's good. Then God himself stepped down. The sun was on his right hand, and the moon was on his left. The stars were clustered about his head, and the earth was under his feet. And God walked, and where he trod, his footsteps hollowed the valleys out and bulged the mountains up. And then God stopped, and he looked and saw that the earth was hot and barren. So God stepped to the edge of the world, and he spat out the 7 seas. He batted his eyes, and the lightning flashed. He clapped his hands, and the thunders rolled. And the waters above the earth came down. The cooling waters came down. Then the green grass sprouted. The little red flowers blossomed. The pine tree pointed its finger to the sky, and the oak spread out its arms. The lakes cuddled down in the hollows of the ground, and the rivers ran down to the sea. And then God smiled again, and a rainbow appeared and curled itself about his shoulders. Then God raised his arm, and he waved his hand over the sea and over the land, and he said, bring forth. Bring forth. Could drop his hand, fish and fowl, beast and bird, swam the rivers and seas, roamed the forest and wood, and split the air with their wings. And God said, that's good. Bring forth, bring forth, bring forth. Then God walked around, and he looked on all that he had made. He looked at his sun. He looked at his moon. And he looked at his little stars. He looked on all his world with all its living things. But God said, I'm lonely still. So God sat down by the side of a hill where he could think. By a deep, wide river he sat down with his head in his hands And God thought and thought till he thought, I'll make me a man. Up from the bed of the river, God scooped the clay. And by the banks of the river, he kneeled him down. This great God who lit the sun and fixed it in the sky, who flung the stars to the farmost corner of the night, who rounded the world in the middle of his hand, this great God Almighty, like a mammy bending over her baby, knelt in the dust, toiling over a lump of clay, until he shaped it in his own image. Then into it he blew the breath of life, and man became a living soul